everyone and welcome to my channel The Science Hub. I am Anjali. Friends, today we are going to be exploring the fascinating world of ecosystem in Functions of an Ecosystem part 2 video. So friends, in the last video I have talked about energy flow, trophic level interactions and their three components like food chain, food web and ecological pyramids. So in today's video, I am going to talk about rest of the topics under functions of an ecosystem. So friends, at first let me share with you my content resources. I have searched Google for higher quality images, read PD Sharma's book Ecology and Environment and used other resources to discover better information for you. So friends, let's get started. As I have told you that today I am going to cover rest of the topics under functions of an ecosystem which are as follows. Pollutants and trophical level, biotic interaction, biogeochemical cycle and ecological succession. Now coming to the first slide. Here I will be talking about pollutants and trophical level. So in an ecosystem, pollutants, basically non-degradable materials, flow across the different trophic levels. Materials that are incapable of being metabolized by living things are classified as non-degradable contaminants. For instance, hydrocarbons that have been chlorinated. These behaviors together allow even trace amount of environmental contaminants to enter organisms at high enough concentrations to cause harm. That is why we are concerned about them. Movement of these pollutants involve two main processes. So the first one is bioaccumulation and the second one is biomagnification. I will be talking about both the processes one after the other. So at first I will be talking about the bioaccumulation process. So the process by which some materials such toxins or pollutants accumulate over time in an organism's tissue is known as bioaccumulation. These substances can be absorbed or ingested by organisms from their environment, such as through the food they eat or the water they live in. So within an organism, these compounds might be kept in its tissues where they could build up to greater amounts as the organisms moves up to the food chain. So this is because organisms at higher trophic level consume more quantity of organisms from lower trophic levels, resulting in the transfer and accumulation of these substances. Bioaccumulation can cause a variety of health problems as well as ecological imbalances, which have an negative impact on species and ecosystems. Now coming to the next process, that is biomagnification. So when pollutants migrate from one trophic level to the next, they have a propensity to concentrate, a phenomenon known as biomagnification. Therefore, an increase in a pollutant's concentration from one link in a food chain to another occur during biomagnification. Now coming to the next slide. Here I will be talking about the different types of biotic interaction. So at first I will be talking about the biotic interaction. So the term biotic interaction describes the interactions that occur between organisms and their environment, depending on how these interactions impact the individuals or communities involved. Some common types of biotic interactions include mutualism, commensalism, competition, predation, amensalism, and neutralism. I will be talking about all the terms one after the other. So mutualism, through the supply of food, shelter or pollination, for example, the interaction benefits both engaged organisms. It can increase the fitness and survival of the individuals involved. Now coming to the next one, that is commensalism. So the interaction favors one organism while having no effect on the other. Say for example, epiphytes are small green plants which grow perched on larger plants for space only, like orchids and mosses. Now coming to the next one, that is competition. Occurs when two or more organisms compete for limited resources like food, space or matter. It can lead to decreased fitness and reproductive successes for the individuals involved. Say for example, two plants competing for sunlight and nutrients in a crowded garden. Now coming to the next one, that is predation. So one species benefits, the other is harmed. Say for example, a lion hunting and eating a zebra on the African savanna. Now coming to the next type, that is amensalism. It is a type of relationship in which one organism is unaffected while another organism is negatively impacted. Say for example, shedding effect of tall trees on smaller plants. Now coming to the next one, that is neutralism. So when two organisms live close to one another but do not interact or significantly affect one another, this sort of biotic interaction is known as neutralism. So essentially, they do not compete, predate, or engage in symbiotic relationships with one another. Examples of neutralism include two plant species growing near each other. So in a field or forest, two different plant species may coexist, but they do not actively interact. Although they might fight for certain resources such as water or sunlight, they often cohabit without having a big effect on one another. Now, coming to the next slide. Here I will be talking about the biogeochemical cycle. So the term biogeochemical cycle, it describes the intricate and interwoven matter and energy cycles on earth that are a result of geological, biological and chemical processes. These cycles control the availability and distribution of molecules and elements that are vital to life, including oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, water, carbon, etc. So together these components account for about 95% of the bulk of all living things and 97% of the mass of our bodies. So in addition to this, between 15 and 25 more elements are required in some capacity for plant and animal survival and health. Now coming to the next slide. Here I will be talking about the nutrient cycle. So nutrient cycle refers to the movement and exchange of nutrients between living organisms and the physical environment and subsequently recycled back to the living organisms. It is a crucial process that supports life on earth and maintains the balance of nutrients in ecosystem. Study of nutrient cycle usually focus on particular nutrients with each nutrient in an environment having a unique cycle pattern. So a couple of the most significant nutrient cycles are the nitrogen and carbon cycles. So a crucial component of the total soil nutrient cycle is made up of these two cycles. So there are many other nutrient cycles that are important in ecology, including a large number of trace mineral nutrient cycles. So based on the nature of the reservoir, there are two types of cycles, namely gaseous and sedimentary cycle. So now coming to the first one, that is gaseous cycle. So the most important gaseous cycles are water, carbon and nitrogen cycle. I will be dealing with all the cycles one after the other. So at first I will be dealing with the water cycle. Certainly, the water cycle, also known as the hydrologic cycle, describes the continuous movement of water above and below the surface of the earth. It is a complex process that involves various physical and biological processes including evaporation, transpiration, condensation, precipitation, deposition, runoff, infiltration and groundwater flow. Now coming to the next cycle, that is carbon cycle. So the movement of carbon in the atmosphere, on land, in water and among organisms is referred to as carbon cycle. It is a dynamic multifaceted process that incorporates both naturally occurring and man-made processes. Now coming to the next cycle, that is nitrogen cycle. So nitrogen is a fundamental component of all biological tissues and an essential component of protein. It makes up to 16% of all proteins by weight. Although the atmosphere contains an endless supply of nitrogen, most living things are unable to directly consume it in its elemental form. So before nitrogen is absorbed by plants, it must be fixed and transformed into ammonia, nitrites, and nitrates. On Earth, nitrogen fixation is accompanied by three distinct processes which are as follows. The first one is by microbes, bacteria, and blue-green algae. Second one is by humans through industrial processes, that is fertilizer factories, and third one is to a limited extent by atmospheric phenomenon such as thunder and lightning. So it is possible for some microbes to fix atmospheric nitrogen into ammonium ions. So among there are free living nitrifying bacteria such as anaerobic Clostridium and aerobic Azotobacter. So symbiotic nitrifying bacteria that coexist with leguminous plants, the symbiotic bacteria that reside in non-leguminous root nodule plants such as Rhizobium and blue-green algae such as Anabaena and Spirulina. So certain plants can absorb ammonium ions directly as a source of nitrogen, or two types of specialist bacteria can oxidize them to produce nitrites or nitrates. So the bacteria Nitrosomonas stimulates the conversion of ammonia to nitrite. So the bacteria Nitrobacter subsequently converts nitrite into nitrate. So the building blocks of proteins, amino acids, these are produced by plants using the nitrates that microorganisms in the soil have synthesized. So following that, these pass through the ecosystem's higher trophic level. So during excretion and upon the death of all organisms, nitrogen is returned to the soil in the form of ammonia. Due to their high solubility in water, a certain amount of soil nitrate is lost to the system through groundwater or surface runoff. So in the soil as well as oceans, there are special denitrifying bacteria, say for example Pseudomonas, which converts the nitrates or nitrites to elemental nitrogen. This nitrogen escapes into the atmosphere, thus completing the cycle. The frequent thunderstorms and transform atmospheric nitrogen gas into ammonia and nitrates, which eventually make their way to the earth's surface through precipitation and soil, where they are subsequently taken up by the plants. Now coming to the next one, that is sedimentary cycle. So the sedimentary cycle is the mechanism by which phosphorus, calcium and magnesium are circulated. So the elements that is engaged in the sedimentary cycle through the biological transfer through the excreta of marine birds, erosion, sedimentation, mountain formation or volcanic activity. Now coming to the next slide, here I will be talking about the ecological succession. So ecological succession refers to the gradual process of change in an ecological community over time. It describes how the composition and structure of an ecosystem evolve in response to various factors like natural disturbances, climate change or human activities. So there are two main types of ecological succession. The first one is primary succession and the second one is secondary succession. I will be dealing with both the types one after the other. So at first I will be talking about the primary succession. So the primary succession occurs in areas where there was previously no vegetation or life, like newly formed volcanic islands or areas covered in lava flows. So the first organisms to colonize this area are typically lichens, mosses and other small plants that can survive in harsh conditions. Now coming to the second one, that is secondary succession. It takes place in areas where an existing ecosystem has been disrupted or disturbed, like a forest after a wildlife or a field after agriculture abandonment. So in this case, some organisms or seeds may have survived and disturbance. So and they can quickly re-establish themselves and start the process of succession. So the recovery process may involve the different successional stages, with the pioneer species gradually replaced by more complex and diverse communities. So thank you friends for watching my video. If you found this video helpful, please like, share and subscribe. Until next time, take care and stay curious.